So I assume most of you are in Israel just because it's 9 o'clock in the morning here and 2 a.m. in Eastern Standard. So unless you're on the West Coast, chances are you're in Israel. And I think among many of the struggles, emotional struggles, the physical, we have endless struggles. I think, at least for me, one of my biggest struggles as an observant Jew, as a religious Jew, is faith. Right? I mean, it's the age-old question. How does God, who is all good, do something or allow something like this to happen? I'm pretty sure all of us ask ourselves that question at some point. And I ask myself that question every day, and I struggle with it. I really do. And I look at our quote unquote forefathers, or our grandparents and great grandparents who experienced the Holocaust. Some of them, including my grandmother, who came out with stronger faith than before. And it boggles my mind. How does a person do that? And so, I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to, convince anyone of anything, but I am here to share some things that, have happened to me over the last couple of years that really shook me to my core in terms of God's presence in this world. To be clear, I'm not one of these voodoo, Kabbalic kind of Jews. I don't know anything about Kabbalah, and I'm just a grounded, feet on the ground kind of guy, but these things are undeniable, and I wanted to share one or two of them with you. So about 5 years and a month ago, my older brother, Ari Fuld, who I'm sure many of you have heard of, was tragically murdered in a terrorist attack on Erev Yom Kippur, the eve of Yom Kippur. He was in the Tomet HaGush, the Gush Junction, which is 20 minutes from Jerusalem, shopping for his family, and a cowardice, barbaric 16-year-old Palestinian terrorist came from behind and stabbed him in the main artery in his neck, at which point Ari was basically declared dead. And yet somehow, and when I say miraculous, I don't mean this in an exaggerated, sensationalist kind of way. It's actually a miracle. He somehow was able to run after this terrorist, jump over a wall, run 50 meters, get down in shooting position, and shoot the terrorist as the terrorist was inches away from another woman who was supposed to be his next victim. This other woman's name is Hillel. She had served this terrorist a falafel 5 minutes before. She has a falafel stand there, and this terrorist, barbaric as he was, just ate a falafel 5 minutes before he went and murdered someone. And he was after her, and Ari, took him down literally centimeters away from her. Since then, she's become a part of our family. And over the last 5 years, many things have happened. First of all, Ari became a national hero of the state of Israel, something that I often talk about in regards to my grandmother. If I had told her in Auschwitz that her grandson would be a national hero of the state of Israel, I'm not sure she'd be able to even digest that information. Not sure she'd know what to do with that information. But the reality is that he is a national hero of the state of Israel, and the stories about Ari and his impact in this world do not stop coming even now, 5 years later. I have pictures in my inbox of hundreds of babies who were born named Ari after my brother, by parents who never met my brother, never even spoke to my brother, but he influenced and impacted their lives so much through his work online that they decided to name their kid after him, which, first of all, is a lesson to us all that we really don't know who our words will impact, how our words will impact, and we really need to not belittle our ability to use the keyboard, to use social media, to use the internet, to spread positivity. I got a message yesterday from someone who told me she has not kept Shabbos in years because of this problem, her faith. And my posts on Friday, I sign off every Friday and I give a Torah lesson for the portion, but not a religious Torah lesson, a Torah lesson that anybody can understand because it usually relates to leadership and business. And this woman wrote me that she, basically started keeping Shabbos, started, being more careful, at least Shabbos, because of that post, which boggled my mind. But more importantly, I want to say that, a few years before, and this is not a story that I've told maybe ever publicly. If I have, it's maybe once or twice, but I don't recall. Many years ago, Ari was in Lebanon for the Lebanon War, and he was, and this is a story, 100% true. There's no exaggeration here, I promise you. He was on a stakeout. He was leaning on a tree, staking out our enemies, and he was there for hours, leaning on this tree for hours. At one point, he got up to stretch his muscles, and as he got up, a bomb detonated and shrapnel hit the tree in full force and missed him by a quarter of a millimeter. Literally, had he not moved that millimeter, he would not have been with us. And the terrorist, all those years later, got him by 1 millimeter. Had he moved over 1 millimeter and stabbed him anywhere else in the neck, he would be alive today. And so someone pointed out to me, and again, I don't know God's ways, and it's difficult for me to swallow, but someone pointed out to me, Hashem gave him that quarter of a millimeter as a gift. He gave us time with him. He knew he had to make an impact in this world, so he moved that bomb over by a quarter of a millimeter and said, here, take some borrowed time because you are here on earth for a mission, and that is to impact millions of lives. So I'm going to move that shrapnel over. You'll have a couple of years to do what you need to do. Again, it's a difficult concept, but something about it just feels real. It just resonates. But moving along, the following thing that I'm about to tell you is, I don't know, supernatural. I don't know what you want to call it. It's miraculous for sure, and it blows my mind. So 50 years ago, when Ari was born in the United States in New York, my parents named him Ari, not Aryeh, Ari. And that wasn't a very common name back then. Aryeh was a common name, and people called their sons Ari as a shortcut for Aryeh. But Ari as a name was not a very common name. And many people asked my parents, where'd you get that name from? Like, why'd you name him Ari? And they're like, we just liked the name. They didn't really think much of it. Anyway, Ari grew up, and he was a pretty extraordinary guy, but he was a normal guy. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you would be walking on the street and you'd see Ari, you wouldn't stop and be like, that guy's, that dude's weird. He was a normal guy. But he had certain things about him that were extraordinary, that were, I don't want to say not normal because that has negative connotations, but extraordinary. And I'm going to share a few of them with you. So Ari, in the middle of his life, before his family came to Israel, he just picked up and moved to Israel by himself. He volunteered for the army. He climbed up the ranks in the army. He held in the army what was called a mag gun, a mag. In Hebrew, mag is a gun that was literally built for tanks, not for human beings to hold. And that was his role. He held this mag. And like I said, he climbed up the ranks of the IDF, and then he got out of the IDF. He did reserve duty, continued with the mag, got his exemption papers at the age of 40, like we all do. He ripped them up, and he continued to volunteer. And at his funeral, his sergeant told us that he said to Ari, in the last couple of years, Ari, it's enough. You're not a young guy anymore. Give your mag to someone else. It's time. Give it to one of the young soldiers. And Ari wouldn't even hear of it. So Ari came here and literally conquered this land. He came as a hero. He lived as a hero. He died as a hero, but he really, truly conquered this land. That's one. The second thing, Ari was online 24/6. Obviously, we're observant Jews. We were off for Shabbat, but all day, every day, all night, every night, defending the Jewish people online. And, I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I'd say to him, Ari, what are you doing? Get off of Twitter, go to sleep. You're not even convincing this anti-Semite. He's not even listening to you. And Ari would not hear of it. He was online defending this country and this nation 24/6. He did not sleep. And I want to emphasize, I don't mean that in a, like I said before, exaggerated kind of way. I don't know when the guy slept. He did not sleep. And that is, like I said before, extraordinary, but he really did not sleep. That's the second thing. The third thing is, Ari was a 4th degree black belt. And he, when the rest of us pray, a lot of times Jews do this, they shuckle. Ari didn't. When he prayed, he put himself into Tai Chi, like a meditative state, and he just stood there like a brick wall. His tefillah, his davening was different than the rest of ours. But not any davening. All of his davening was different, but specifically the davening of Shema. Shema Yisrael, Hear O Israel. Something about that prayer, I don't know what it was, but Ari was deeply fire passionate about that prayer. Fire. Don't know why. And finally, a last thing that I would say is that out of all the mitzvahs, out of all the commandments in the Torah, Ari was very, very, very passionate, deeply passionate about the mitzvah of the fringes, tzitzit, that you put on your four-cornered garment. You see pictures of him with his talit on his head. He was very, very passionate about tzitzit. So let's just go over the things that I just mentioned, and then I'll tell you where I'm going with this. Okay, so he was a hero who conquered the land. He did not sleep. He was very, very dedicated to tefillah, to prayer. He was very dedicated to Shema Yisrael, and he was very, very deeply passionate about the mitzvah, the commandment of tzitzit. That was Ari's autobiography. That is what he stood for. Okay, sit down for this, guys. I'm about to blow your mind. So after he was murdered, my parents opened up the Torah, and they said, where did we get this name from? What is the source of the name Ari? And here's what they found. Guys, get ready for this. This is not something our human brains can understand. There are 2 mentions of the word Ari in the entire Torah. Twice he's mentioned. The name Ari is twice mentioned in the entire Torah. I'm going to read to you the pasuk, the verse, and then I'm going to read to you the commentary. And I'm reading word for word. And if you don't believe me, you could email me afterwards and I will send you a screenshot, okay? Here's what the Torah says. I'm holding my phone up and I'm reading. Kara shachav ke'ari, like an Ari, uchelavim kimenu. What does that mean? They crouch, they lie down like a lion. Ari is a lion, like the king of beasts. Okay, that's what the Torah, that is what the pasuk says, the Bible, okay? And here is what Rashi, the commentator on the Bible, here's what he says to describe a lion. And I want to be clear, if I would ask anybody on this Zoom right now, define lion, you would say the king of beasts, you'd say many different things. Here's how Rashi defines lion, and I'm reading word for word. Tarashachav kari, they crouch like a lion. Kitargumo, like one of the other commentary Unculus. You ready for this? This is what he says. Yityashvu be'artzam, they will settle their land bekoach uvikvura, with strength and might. They will settle their land with strength and might. That is how he defines an Ari, to settle his land with strength and might. I mean, let's just think about that for a second. Out of all of the ways he could have described to define the lion, that's how he defines the lion? Yes, an Ari settles and conquers his land with strength and might, which, like, my parents were like, oh my God, that's chills-inducing. But wait, it gets better. The second time the word Ari appears in the Torah, I'm reading for you the words of the Torah and then the commentary. And this is word for word, you guys. You can look it up. Here it goes. Ein am kilavi yakum, lo, a people that rises like a lion. The Charit Nasa leaps up like the king of beasts. Lo yishkav ad yochal teref. He does not sleep until he consumes his prey. A lion does not sleep. Wow. And then comes the kicker. And I'm reading to you guys word for word. You're not going to believe it, but you can go confirm. Rashi, the main commentator on the Torah. Here he goes. Heinam kilavi yakum. Okay? Lo, a people that rise like a lion, like an Ari. When they get up, and mitgabrim kilavi v'chari, they overcome like a lion, lachtof et hamitzvot, to grab the Torah commandments. They overcome themselves like a lion to grab the Torah commandments. Guys, there's 613 commandments in the Torah. Rashi could have brought 613 commandments to emphasize and illustrate this point. And let me tell you what he says. Here he goes. They overcome to grab the mitzvos. Which 3 mitzvos does Rashi mention? Lilvosh talit, to wear the fringes. Likro et shema, to read the shema. Ulahaniach tefillin, to wear the tefillin, which we wear when we pray. Talis, tzitzis, shema, and prayer. Overcome like a hero, like a lion. Conquer the land and do not sleep. This is the Torah, guys. This is what it says in the Torah. I can't make it up. You can look it up. My parents almost had a heart attack in a good way. I mean, who would have, like, you know, my brother was murdered. The last thing I wanted is to believe in God. How did God do this? I think God shows himself to us like this. You named him Ari randomly 50 years ago. Let me show you why you named him Ari. Ari, God said to my parents. It blew our mind. And then I said to myself, you know, like I said before, I'm a pretty grounded Jew. I don't know. I don't understand this stuff. I'm like, let me look a little deeper into this. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said to me, Hillel, what's your name? I said, my name is Hillel. They said, you know what? Tell me about you a little bit. They knew me, but they asked me to describe me. And I said, okay, what do you mean? They said, well, what do you love doing in your life? What really gets you going? What do you do professionally? I said, honestly, I love empowering others. That's what I do. I empower entrepreneurs all day long. I elevate them. I try to, right? I try to praise. Anybody who follows me sees that I'm praising people all the time, trying to elevate. That's my thing. And then my friend said to me, okay, so you like praising, you like elevating, you like empowering. Great. How does it make you feel? I thought about it and I said, I don't know, it makes me feel alive. It's my essence. It's what I love doing. It makes me feel alive. He said, okay, it makes you feel alive. What else does it make you feel? And I said, it makes me feel whole. It's really part of me. That is what I love doing. I love helping others. It makes me feel alive and it makes me feel whole. This person looked at me and said, Hillel, what's your name? And I said, my name is Hillel. He said, no, not your first name. What is your entire whole name? I said, my whole name is Hillel Chaim Shlomo. Hillel means to praise. Chaim means alive. Shlomo means shalem, full, complete. That is my name. I've lived for 43 years. I'm 44 now. I've lived for 43 years without thinking of the significance and the meaning of my name. When my parents named me 44, you think they thought I'm going to be an entrepreneur who empowers and elevates others? I'm pretty sure they didn't. And yet my name describes my essence. Why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you this not because, I'm some kind of, like I said before, Kabbalist who's trying. No, I'm telling you all this because God appears in the strangest ways, guys, in the strangest ways. I know it's such a hard concept to understand. We don't know God's ways. So when good things happen, we thank God. When bad things happen, we don't know God. I get it. Trust me, I struggle with it. But I'll say it the other way. I'll say, if you are asking yourself now, where was God? Where was God in the Holocaust? Where's God on October 7th? How did he let this happen? Then you have to equally and say the exact same thing every time you get up in the morning and breathe, and every time you open your eyes, and every time you're able to use your thumb, and how is God let me do this? What did I do to deserve this? Why is God giving me these gifts? If you're going to ask when God allows quote unquote bad things to happen, you have to be honest, and you have to ask the same question when all the good things happen to us. And again, I don't know God's ways. No one does, but I will say that what's going on here, guys, you need to open your eyes. I know it's the most terrible tragedy, in the history of the Jewish people after the Holocaust. We know how horrible it is. I don't need to reiterate that. We all know that. But I also know that 3 days before this happened, Hillel, Fuld, me, just a simple dude, had a very, very, very weird, unexplained, I would say supernatural hunch. And you're going to be like, yeah. Well, I'll say, go look at my social media because it's there. You can read it if you think I'm making this up. I wrote a post about 3 days before this happened, and I said, guys, you're all not paying attention. Something big is about to happen between Ukraine and Russia, America and China, America and Russia, Israeli, quote unquote, internal politics, anti-religious, religious, reform, no reform, America left, right. Something is about to reach a boiling point. And I said in the post, guys, you can go read it. I wrote in the post, and Israel will be at the center of it. If you think for a second that this is going to end with Israel, you're not paying attention. I don't know, and I'm not one of these Mashiach guys. No, Mashiach's coming. I believe Mashiach's coming every day, but am I going to say, oh, this happened, therefore Mashiach's coming? No. But I am going to say that I have zero doubt, not 1%, but zero doubt that what's happening now is a tremendous, astronomical, historic step towards Mashiach coming. This is not going to end with Israel. America sent over warships that are stronger than the entire IDF. I'll repeat that. The warships that America sent over to the Mediterranean are stronger than the entire IDF. Yesterday, China deployed their... This is not going to end with Israel. I don't know how it's going to happen, whether it's Hezbollah dropping. I don't know. But this is not going to end with Israel. And I don't want to, God forbid, scare anyone and say World War III. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But I know one thing. I know that God loves us. I know that God has and will continue to be there with us. He is our Father. I don't know why this happened. I keep telling myself it's what happened when I bring my child to the doctor and force him to take a shot. He screams. He thinks I'm the worst person in the world and that I hate him. How could you let me stick a needle into my arm? Are you insane, Abba? What's wrong with you? How could you do that to me? Well, we all know why. We all know he needed that shot. So I want to believe this is our shot. I don't know why we need it, but I know that if Hashem made this or allowed this to happen, we do need it. And Hashem gives us free choice. Hamas made a very, very bad choice. And I'll just end with that. They don't know what they got themselves into. Because when we stood at Sinai, guys, listen carefully. When we became a nation, the very, very first description of the Jewish people as a nation is Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Ahar. They stood and they parked by the mountain, by Mount Sinai. And it says Vayichan, which is singular. Why doesn't it say Vayachnu? They parked. Why singular? And Rashi famously said, they were like one man or one person with one heart. They were unified. And that is our strength. There has never been such unity in the Jewish people. Hamas is about or has already opened the gates of hell for themselves. As hard as it is for us to understand we are a compassionate people, we care about innocent lives. Obviously, they don't. They do not know who they're messing with, but they're about to find out. We will win this war. We will come out stronger. We will be a massive, massive step closer to Mashiach coming. We already see so many different signs, some of the world standing behind us. Guys, Mashiach's around the corner. All I have to say is each one of you has the ability to impact lives, whether it's through donations, whether it's through your use and capitalization of your social media platforms, whether it's picking up the phone to comfort someone. Don't just sit back. Don't just sit back and read the news. It's bad for your soul. I'm not saying not to stay updated, but stay away from things that your soul is not meant to digest. It will do nothing good for you. Focus on what you can do. Focus on building. Let them focus on destruction. Let's pray, and let's together bring Mashiach, hopefully very soon. Thank you, guys. Leslie, you want to do questions?
That was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was amazing. I know just from people, that have written in the chat, or some of them have written me personally, like a direct message. We've all been very, very inspired by your talk today. Thank you so much. And what a wonderful tribute as well to your brother, Ari, Zichrono Levacha. And I know that, for example, one person I know that's on the Zoom today has a family member by the name of Ari. So I'm sure that was very interesting for them too. And any of you too, that if you have any family member by the name of Ari, that was super inspiring too. So thank you so much. We really appreciate this. We're not done yet. We still have a couple of minutes to go. If anybody has any questions, firstly to Hillel, please, feel free to ask your questions. This is the time, or just add your comments. There are comments in the chat as well. I will say too, and I'm actually going to just spotlight my self for a moment too, for those of you that are on speaker view. I will say too that that's one thing that I often say in terms of what we can do. And one of the tips that I wrote, for example, on my social media, and also in an article on in the Times of Israel, is that we know what our strengths are, and each of us have strengths in certain areas. So wherever our strengths are, that is where we can make positive influence here. Whether it is donating money or packing or cooking for the soldiers or for anyone else, and I know people here that are supporting the soldiers in that way too, or whether it's being on social media and doing something on your social media that will influence and positively inspire. And that's how this program and session was brought to be, by the fact that we saw a need. And, that everyone needs motivation and inspiration right now. That's without doubt. And even once the war is over, and we will succeed, we will win, okay, Bezrat Hashem, but we will do it. And we'll still need inspiration and motivation afterwards. So this series is planned as an ongoing series. And besides that, and also highlighting and spotlighting and giving exposure to Israeli businesses right now, who many of them have taken a large hit, the economy. So that's something that we can all certainly work on and inspire and motivate in our own way. So I see that you're writing lots of words of chizuk and thank you in the chat. Once again, if you have any questions for Hillel, but it was very inspiring and not necessarily worthy of any questions, but comments. So that is something that we aim to do every single week. So
Leslie,
as I say,
may I just add something?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
If there are questions, then let me know, and I'll just add one thing, and this is really important, and I don't think most people think about this. We know about the story of ancient Egypt, of the redemption. We know that, but do we really know the story? Do we know that 80% of Jews stayed back? Do we know that only 20% of the Jews left Egypt? 80% of the Jews stayed in Egypt. Do you understand how insane that is? Do you understand that they thought, this is my home, this is where I was born, this is where my grandparents were born, this is where I'm safe, I have a roof over my head? Can you imagine? They stayed back. But wait, it gets even better. In the desert, they sent these 12 spies. And we were like, the 12 spies, 10 came back and spoke negatively. But again, do we think about this? Because these weren't 12 normal, ordinary people. These were 12 of the biggest leaders of the generation. Each one of those was a leader of a tribe. So how could that be? What were they thinking? Do we ever think about this? Well, think about the narrative. What was the narrative? The narrative in both cases, leaving Egypt and leaving the desert, was the same thing. We're safe here. You know what? In the desert, God's giving us manna from the sky. We have the clouds of glory surrounding us. We have a direct line of communication with God. Here, we're more religious in the desert. Forget going to Israel, building an economy, building an army, dealing with enemies. What do I need that for? Let me just stay in the desert, and I'll stay religious. And you know what God did, right? The rest is history. God says, your job is not to stay religious in the desert. Your job is not to stay in America where you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow and there's anti-Semitism at your door. Your job is to get on a plane and come stand by your brothers and sisters in Israel. People are asking me, should I leave? I'm like, are you for real right now? Stand by us. You leave, you're abandoning your brothers and sisters now. Have you lost your mind? Come to Israel. This is where you belong, with all the atrocities, with all the danger, with all the sadness. The difference is we have Tzahal, we have the IDF. Who cares about me and you? Who cares about our friends over there? Nobody. So this is where we need to be. This is where Hashem told us to be. Okay, we are supposed to be here. It could not be any clearer. Every single one of the Jews around the world, without exception, prays to Jerusalem. Every single Jew around the world has faced Jerusalem for thousands of years when we pray. God has said to us, this is where you need to be. And if God told us this is where we need to be, then God will make sure we're taken care of here where we need to be. And at the end of the day, like I said before, guys, we will win this. There's no choice. We will win this. We will come out stronger. What was will not be. Forget Hamas accumulating sophisticated weapons. That's game over. It's the end for them. They know that. We know that. And it's time everyone knew that. Whether the world supports that or not, it is the end of Hamas. And what was will no longer be. And we will win this. We will come out stronger. And I'm telling you guys, we are closer and closer every day to the final redemption that every Jew has prayed for since the beginning of time. Are there any questions? Leslie, any questions?
Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat, but you've inspired and definitely motivated us, which is the aim of this series. As I said, every Monday we have a different speaker, religious, non-religious, different viewpoints. The overall aim is to inspire and motivate and to basically build and give exposure to Israeli businesses and individuals, as well as the economy. So Hillel, you've been an amazing opening speaker. Thank you so much for this. You've been fabulous. You've given us total inspiration, which is the whole aim. I'd like you all to take back now and just think about for the next couple of moments, even once we end this call, from the inspiration that Hillel's given us, what each and every one of us can do to our economy, to our country, to inspire other people. And that is the aim and name of the game with the session. Some of you will be watching this recording. Thank you very much to those who joined live. It's been awesome seeing you live as well and seeing a range and sector of different people, men, women, friends, colleagues all over. Hillel, anything you want to add? Just one thing?
Yeah. I see a question here from someone named Matisiyahu Rosenberg who said, I teach public speaking at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. Much of my class is Jewish, but a non-Jewish student came to class with a Hamas t-shirt on. I feel like I have a job to do, which is to teach how would I address something like this in the classroom. Hi, Matisiyahu. First of all, wow, that's mind-boggling. For starters, I'm not telling you what to do. You're obviously a teacher, you know better than me, but I mean, Hamas is a terrorist organization. So if someone came to class wearing an ISIS t-shirt, would that be acceptable, or would you kick them out of class? I would kick this kid out of class and tell him to go home and change his shirt. That's for starters. But obviously on a more fundamental level, I would absolutely take this child, I would take the student aside after a class and, in a non-combative, non-confrontational way, sit with him or her and have a conversation and say, oh, you're supporting Hamas. What's Hamas? Just out of curiosity, what are you supporting? When was the Palestinian Arab state established that Israel conquered and occupied? What did we do in Gaza that enabled, or I should say encouraged Hamas to do what they did on October 7th? Were we occupying Gaza? Like, ask the questions, because what you'll find, at least in 90% of the cases, is that these people marching through the streets know absolutely zero about what they're marching for. So I wouldn't even start explaining and dictating to this person, oh, you're wrong. No, I would ask them and let them realize they know nothing. And when they realize they know nothing, say, may I fill you in on actual history? Let's not talk politics. Let me give you history. There was no Arab-Palestinian state. They are not fighting with resistance to Jews in Gaza because there are no Jews in Gaza. So why don't you go read the Hamas charter? Why don't you go read the PLO charter? And let's have a discussion. But before you put on a Hamas t-shirt, why don't you realize who you're supporting and who you're marching for? That would be my way of handling it.
Right, absolutely. Thank you. There is another question, but we don't have time. Our calls are for 30 minutes. So thank you so much again, Hillel. You've been an amazing speaker. Next week, we have Jody Samuels, inspiring Jody Samuels.
Oh, amazing.
I'll send out details. Jody's on this call right now too. So stay tuned. If you signed up today, you're going to be getting an automatic update. And thank you for joining us at our Monday Motivation Spotlight series. I'm Leslie Kaplan. This is brought to you by myself as well as ACI. And our co-sponsors for the month, Israel Properties. Thank you so much. Thank you, Hillel. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And have a wonderful, safe, inspiring day and week. See you next week. Bye-bye.